What is up, everybody? Thank you for tuning back into another episode of the Unrecognized podcast. This episode, we dive into a super cool episode with an engineer, producer, mixer, whatever you want to call him. He does it all with the music industry behind the scenes. And man, this is such a cool episode. Thank you all for listening once again. Let's dive in. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the Unrecognized podcast. My name is Rishnak, your host, and with me today, I have the mix master, Pat. What's going on, bro?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So, introduce yourself a little bit.
My name's Pat. Patmixedit on all of my socials. I am a producer and engineer from Morgantown, West Virginia.
Dope. Yeah, so when people hear mix engineer, I mean, a lot of people can associate it with the music industry, but dive a little bit more into what exactly that is.
Well, mixing is pretty much just creative problem solving. So I work with people both in my home studio, and I have a ton of people all over the country, and even a couple other countries. I think I got somebody in South Africa and somebody in the UK. They'll send me stuff. Basically, they'll record with somebody, and it's my job to take the vocals and get them to sound radio ready, I guess, for lack of a better term. So you just solve the problems that come with that. Every song has its own challenges, and I typically work in hip hop and pop and R&B. So a lot more of what I do is it's more or less vocal centered work whenever it is that I'm mixing. So yeah.
That's sweet. Yeah, that's kind of the behind the scenes things that a lot of people don't even understand about.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. It's definitely a lot of people will say that engineers are the unsung heroes, because a lot of people don't really know a whole lot about who engineers a song. Typically, you're going to know the artist, of course, and then producers are kind of getting their shine now, which is awesome, because I do a pretty good amount of that too. But yeah, engineering, there's a lot that goes into it, and it can be a little bit of a thankless job sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I obviously, like I said, I DJ, so it's definitely you see hundreds of, you see so many people that pop up in the music industry that are, like your friends or friends of friends, and it's kind of like, that's awesome that they're doing music. But I think when you really gain that respect, or at least me as somebody who really appreciates music, you need a good sound for me to really, really respect it. You know what I mean?
For sure, man. For sure.
So that's kind of, for people that heard what he said, that's basically what he does, is he makes it sound like the real stuff. So
I make it, I take what they give me and try to make it the best version of it possible.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I found you through Gandhi, and one thing about him is I don't know, do you do all of his engineering or most of it? Or
I would say 99% of it.
Okay.
Actually, I got to give him some credit, because Gandhi knows how to run a session for himself. He knows how to record himself. He kind of knows what it is that he's looking for in his own vocal mixes.
Right.
So he's able to go to other studios and make sure that he's taken care of on his own, just in case I'm too busy. But I would say that probably 9 out of 10 songs that you hear from him, I was involved in one way or another.
Definitely. Yeah, because the one thing I first recognized about him was just his sound just sounded like radio, just like you said. It just sounded really, really tight. And I DJ for another kid out of Wisconsin here. He's from Minneapolis, but he is another one where it's his mixing is just right,
Yeah.
Just, you could just pinpoint their types of music. So
I like to think that some of the people that I work with around here, that between myself and the other engineers in Morgantown, there's definitely I'm not the only guy around here doing it right. I'd like to think that when a local artist, because you know how people always kind of like to make a joke out of SoundCloud rappers or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
When you can take somebody that is a local guy or whatever and make them sound competitive enough to where you can be listening to it in a car, or it comes on and somebody may not know who it is, and they're like, oh shit, who's this? And you're like, oh, that's homeboy from 10 minutes up the street. And they're like, oh, no way. That's
Yeah.
always like a really cool thing. I feel like when somebody can appreciate that and appreciate that it sounds hopefully good enough to want to listen to more than once.
Yeah, definitely.
Always shooting for replay value.
That's exactly correct. So tell people a little bit about like your journey. I know looking at like your Instagram and stuff, I saw some of the band stuff and stuff like that.
Yep.
So just kind of
So
through that.
I am I'm a little bit older than a lot of the people I work with. I'm 27.
Hmm.
And when I graduated high school in 2012, I attended University of Full Sail in Florida for a little while under the music business program. Was there for about a year and a half, moved back home just because I had some personal shit going on.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I always played in local bands. Like I wrote music. I was really into metal music, still am. And I was lucky enough a couple years after I had moved home. So we're talking about like 2014, 2015 was kind of when I started to, there's a band from New Jersey that had hit me up called Chasing Safety, and they were signed to a label called Outer Loop Records. And I was familiar with the band a little bit just because I'd seen their name kind of pop up in different
Hmm.
circles of like the music that I was listening to at the time. And they'd asked me if I was interested in trying out doing like a video audition where I learned a couple of their songs because they were looking for somebody to go on a couple tours that they had coming up that spring. I think it was spring of 2015. And yeah. So we're talking 6 years ago now at this point.
Yeah.
Uh, they asked me if I was interested, and I had never had the chance to tour or anything like that. So of course, I mean, I jumped right on it. It was like,
Right.
holy shit, like this band's hitting me up. I got stars in my eyes about it. I was so stoked. Everything went well. And then within like a week and a half, they gave me the call and they're like, hey, you got the job if you want it. So I was taking classes at a local college at the time, Fairmont State, and working a job selling cell phones, actually, I think is what I was doing at the time. And I dropped like all that, went on tour for 3 straight months.
Dang.
Yeah, and it was pretty sick. I did like 2 full US tours back to back. First one was with a band called I Prevail that had just come out with a Taylor Swift cover, and they blew the fuck up like overnight.
Really?
Crazy. It was crazy. It was my first tour too, but
Yeah.
it was also their first tour. And as headliners, they were selling out every single show, like
Dang.
800, 1,200 cap venues. Like I was playing big shows for the first time in my life. And it was sick. It was a surreal experience. I ended up doing that for the better part of 4 years, or 3.5, if you want to be like super particular about it. The last tour I went on was in 2017. I was actually out with Issues, whose hoodie I'm wearing right now.
Sweet.
Shout out Issues. I was playing with a band called Too Close to Touch at the time. Good friends of mine. But yeah, man, that's what I did for most of my early to mid 20s. And then kind of toward the end of my touring career, when things slowed down, I really wanted to stay involved in music. I'd kind of dabbled with recording, some friends, just like trying shit out,
Yeah.
and started to kind of get okay with it. Okay
Right.
enough to where I was confident to reach out to some people that I knew were making music around the area. And I've always loved rap music. I've always been a really big fan of the genre, and I started to kind of focus on trying to get a hold of different rappers in the area, and seeing if they would come through and just give me a chance. And I did
Right.
free songs for so many people. It was basically just like, if you like how this went, go tell your friends about it. And
Right.
if you come to me, then I'll keep making sure shit is sweet for you, even when I have to start charging. So it ended up just spiraling into this thing that I was able to do it full time. I'm coming up on it'll be June will be 3 years that I've been doing this completely full time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I feel super lucky because I definitely did not expect to be doing this at all. But luckily, there's so many good people around this area that have been supportive of me, Gandhi included. He's been just absolutely monumental in people finding out who I am, because when we started working together, he just started putting out music like crazy,
Right.
shows like crazy, and people were starting to catch on, be like, oh shit, this guy's like got something good going here. And then
Yeah.
more people started to come work with me, and it just turned into a cool thing, man.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a sick story. I mean, the touring life is like a lot of people don't even, imagine doing that. And the fact that you got to do that for 3.5
It's
years or whatever.
it's
I
a
can't
it's
even
a
imagine.
wild experience, dude.
Yeah.
It was some of the most fun times I've ever had in my life, and I think a big motivation in doing what it is that I do, especially when I'm working with independent artists, is that if I can be a part of them being able to do shit that I did,
Right.
that would be like full circle for me.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
fine. And I want to see other people be able to enjoy success in music, whether it's just making money off of it and having fun, or like actually really going for it, like
Right.
touring and getting signed to a label and all that. Like, no matter what you want to do with it, I'm just happy to be a part of it. If if you're wanting to work with me,
Yeah,
basically.
for sure. I think
Yeah,
that's sick. Man, that's such cool stuff. It's just like I said, just such like a dream idea of like touring the nation, doing what you love. It just sounds good, right?
it's fun as hell. It can get real belly at times.
Oh yeah, I
Sure.
believe that.
I've showered in many Walmart bathrooms.
That's craziness. I
Yeah,
believe that though. It's crazy.
yeah,
It's all
man.
part of the journey though. Looking at that, like I would say since you're mainly a producer now and engineer and stuff, what
Mhm.
would you say the hardest times have been transitioning into this career path for you?
Um, that's a really good question, man. To be honest with you, I think if I had to pick anything that's been like particularly difficult on me, it's
Mhm.
been, um, like I said, I'm a little bit older than a lot of the people that I work with, so I see a lot of my friends over the past couple years, like when I was kind of first trying to start my business, a lot of my friends were graduating college,
Right.
getting these good jobs, but making good money, like settling down. And, you know, um, I was grinding a lot. Like I was having a lot of late nights, a lot of sleepless nights, just really just locking myself in my home studio, trying to work as hard as I could, trying to pump out as many songs as I can, get as good as I could at mixing. And it, I would say just overall, just the learning curve of being in a genre that I had never worked in
Hmm.
before was probably the hardest part for me. Because I mean, you have to adapt to a completely new face of that part of the music industry. I guess even working with independent artists, like rap is so much different than
Yeah,
rock. And I
definitely.
think a lot of the appeal for some of these artists that worked with me early on was that they knew that I had worked with my done shit with my band and like toured and all that. And I was asked for a lot of advice, like, hey, how did this happen for you? How can I make this happen for me? And um, it was it was difficult at times for me to give as good of advice as I felt like I needed to, because like I I was kind of served that opportunity on like I wasn't looking for it.
Right.
Like of course I was super stoked to do it, but I was in no way, shape, or form expecting for that to happen. It just
Yeah.
kind of came across, and I worked hard for it once it came across, but like that's been that was a pretty tough thing for me to like give advice and acclimate to knowing what the needs of a single independent artist is as opposed to a band. Sorry.
Right.
Uh, um, because with a band, you've got five different people, sometimes six different people, if it's not like a smaller band or whatever with fewer members, and you have to consider everybody's individual input. You have to
Definitely.
make compromises, and I mean the financial side of it too. You're splitting with everybody.
Right.
With rap, it's so much more like individualized, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just all kinds of things that come with that. But
Definitely.
that was probably like one of the hardest things for me.
For sure. And I think it's crazy too, because you having like so much firsthand experience in the rock industry
Right.
and then transitioning, it's almost like there's a formula to the rock industry, as you know, as it's literally been around forever. Like
Yeah.
it used to be like where the rap industry was, where like, AC/DC would release an album or Metallica and it was like the biggest thing ever. And now it's like
Oh yeah,
DaBaby
man.
DaBaby releases something and it's on every radio station.
It's
And
wild.
and obviously that transition probably has made a lot more formula for the rap industry, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a crazy thing.
Rap's just rap's just a dominant genre, man.
Definitely.
I mean, it makes up for so much of the money that goes around in the music industry between that pop and EDM. It seems like, rock has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat as far as mainstream audiences are concerned. I feel like a lot of younger kids are not as quick to get into bands. I mean, it's not to, I don't want to paint with a broad brush. There's plenty of kids out there who are like still keeping interest in new bands that come up. And, but it's you can just tell it's different. Like, it's so much harder for a band to really start to break through and see success, I think, than it is for an individual that might be doing like more mainstream accessible music, especially when you look at the stuff that like I was doing. I was playing in a pretty heavy band. It wasn't radio friendly stuff by any means. We had like a heavier sound. We had a screaming vocalist, so that stuff, it can be pretty polarizing to people. So I mean, I understand why it's not as popular, but it does kind of suck a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the world and kids and just the next generation is so like addicted to the personal connection that they are getting with these one-on-one rappers, to where I mean, you can even see like a Migos type group has almost they've definitely had a crazy peak and they're still just on the rise. But I think these one-on-one rappers that you can connect with are like the future already, even though it's a new industry.
Wild, because a lot of them are just like, they're not, I mean, when you get up to the level of like the Migos and the Baby, there's like definitely like an automatically connected like celebrity status that comes with that. But it's these people that are like not quite at that A-list yet that like kids can just talk to them online.
Yeah.
Like somebody who comes to mind actually when you talk about that is a rapper named Snot from Florida. That dude is blowing the fuck up right now, and it's well deserved. He's the man. His music is awesome, but I think a big part of that is his social media presence has always been accessible. He's not out there like flexing super hard to the point where it seems ingenuine. Like now that he's like on, of course he's enjoying more of it, and you can see that he's like kind of getting closer to that like seven-figure lifestyle type shit.
Yeah.
But early on when I started following that guy, like he hadn't really blown up yet, but he was getting like hundreds of thousands of plays on everything that he dropped. Like he'd put a snippet of something up and he'd get like hundreds of retweets. And it was just off kids that really, like, you could tell these kids fuck with him.
Yeah.
Like
just genuinely.
It's a very much reciprocated like appreciation.
Definitely.
And that is something that a lot of individual artists are getting right.
Yeah.
Because bands, they just kind of post and go. They don't really do a whole lot of fan interaction unless they're at the point where they actually have people that are going to tap in with them and they can interact with them.
Right. And there's a thing too where it's like, I think bands have it easier at the bottom, because I play drum set too, and we've had, I mean, I feel like we're kind of in, Wisconsin, like I told you, and I feel like I could get 100 more gigs doing, a drumming act with a band of like, a couple of guitarists. We're going to play some classic rock per se, versus
cover bands can get gigs all day long. If you got bars and people to put their asses in the seats, then you're gonna end up playing some shows.
Yeah, but it's
like classic rock covers.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then whereas like where I'm DJing for like an artist, at the bottom where he's definitely doing well. He's at like, a solid like 5,000 monthly. So it's like right there where he's kind of, getting excited about it and stuff. But it's gigging is like, it's just not really, it's not really
tough to find. I feel like there's a lot of especially in Morgantown, we've kind of seen some venues close up with COVID and everything. And there's no live music right now, but before the pandemic started, there were shows here like every weekend.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd have a couple of them a week. And even if it was just like a regular, like Wednesday night, and you may only have 30 people pop out, these artists are still getting the chance to get up on stage and like try performing.
Right.
I mean, like some of them they're new to it. They would have open mic nights actually here in Morgantown at a place called 123, and it would be like kind of like an open mic, kind of like a networking event, but it was basically set up so that way a lot of the people around here that were making music, and a lot of them were making music with me and like a couple of the other engineers around here. So there was quite a bit of hip hop, quite a bit of R&B, some spoken word stuff. And these guys would get to go perform. And even if it was just to the other people that were there to also perform. So, I mean, you're basically playing for other artists that are there to perform that night. It was still giving them the chance to get up, try it out, be on stage, know what it's like to have that pressure on you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's formative, and that's something that you don't see a whole lot of with certain rappers. You can kind of tell that like by the time that they make it, like they had success with their streams and stuff, but then they get up on stage for the first time to play a big festival show, and you watch them perform, and you're like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it can be kind of weird,
right? No,
yeah.
I think that's like, yeah, especially if you pay attention to it and you have that, thought beforehand, before watching it, you're like, yep, this guy had streams, but he didn't have those underground shows for 6 years before he blew up,
Those and I'm glad you said that, because I was actually about ready to bring that up. There is something that I think is really cool that kind of reminds me of when I was playing in local bands and stuff. You'd have house shows, basement shows, like VFWs that you'd play at with just a bunch of other local artists, and you're kind of starting to see more of that come around now. And it's not necessarily as many bands, but it's like you have all these different kids that are just like SoundCloud artists or like just getting their start, that are getting up and performing in front of a small room of a bunch of their friends and stuff. And that kind of shit is like, playing big shows is cool. It's great. But those types of environments are formative. Artists need that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because it'll help you kind of find yourself. It'll help you appreciate the journey a little bit more, as much as I kind of hate to use that word. I feel like smaller shows, you gotta appreciate performing to a few people before you can really appreciate performing to a few thousand people or a few hundred people. So
yeah, and it's like I said too, just the personal connection is just so important, I think.
Yeah.
When you can nail that, whether you're an artist or a producer or someone behind the scenes, when you can really get that high off of connecting with the people in any way, whether you go to a club and they're playing one of Gandhi's songs and everybody's just loving it, and
I love seeing stuff like that happen, man.
You're just like, dang, I spent 6 hours producing that song, like 2 months ago or whatever, but that's gotta be sick. So yeah, who are some of like the bigger artists that you've done stuff for? Because what would you ballpark the artist number that you've worked with?
Oh God.
That's a fun one.
Definitely in like the low hundreds.
Yeah.
I think like, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a lot. I'd say that the biggest people that I've worked for, actually, I've done some stuff with Jose Guapo in the studio out in Los Angeles. I've got to work with a couple different professional athletes through some features that they've done for people that I've worked with, like Iman Shumpert, Tyron Woodley. I actually just did my second record for Iman Shumpert recently, because he collaborates with this guy Ponce de Leon, that's from West Virginia, but he's more of an LA, Arizona, Vegas area based rapper now. But he's got a pretty big social media presence, and he's always been able to link up with some of the professional athletes that kind of cross over into music a little bit. So it's been cool to work with those guys. Yeah,
that's sweet.
Yeah.
What would you say like some of the biggest doors that have opened for you now have been?
I'm in the middle of some pretty exciting stuff right now. I can't talk a whole lot about it, but my production partner, I've got a production duo, me and my boy Nikki. We go by Don't Panic, and we have a manager out in the Los Angeles area who's been really working hard for us. He's about ready to get us out there semi-permanently. So within the next couple months, we're going to be mainly based in LA as opposed to going back and forth, which is what we've been doing for the past 6 months.
Yeah.
And we've got some pretty exciting things coming up. We've been able to lock in on FaceTime with a couple different pretty big artists that we're excited to work with. We've also got some stuff coming around in like the movie and TV kind of area.
That's sick.
Yeah. So trying to like touch different areas this year
Right.
was really the name of the game. Just trying to branch out and do more stuff. And I love mixing, and I think that I'll always do it to a point. But at this point in my career, I'm much more invested in creating music rather than working on other people's music.
Yeah.
Primarily, anyway. Yeah.
So you mean by creating music, you're talking about more of like the beat production and stuff like that?
Yeah. Beat production,
samples, guitar and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little bit of scoring work. I'm always doing guitar samples for people. I really don't put them out online to purchase that much. It's more or less just like I'll work with somebody when they hit me up. They're like, "Hey, I need guitar on something," and I'm like, "All right, I got you." So it's a lot more like individual case by case with that type of stuff. But I would like to be a year from now at the point where I don't have to mix unless I absolutely want to.
Right. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
definitely. I think, and when you talk about the guitar samples thing, so this kid, I actually go to a college town, whatever, I go to a 2-year degree school, whatever, but so I met a friend, and he is friends with a kid from his hometown, Minneapolis. That's like, so I'm about 2 hours from there. That's like kind of our big international type city that's close to us.
Okay.
So he actually just signed to Internet Money though. His name's Alec Wignall. I think that's how you say it.
Oh, holy shit, really?
Yeah. So he's from Minneapolis, and he did I don't know, you might, being an engineer, producer, whatever, you might check into like more of the facts, but he did that guitar sample on Lemonade.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Yep. And that was just like mind blowing for me, because I'm like, holy crap, this kid comes from Minneapolis, and then he goes to LA, signs the Internet Money as like he's got like an Ed Sheeran type vibe to him.
Yeah,
but then
he's really talented. I like watching his videos. He's got a killer voice too.
Definitely. Yeah. So it's just so sick how like you talk
Didn't
about
Taz like just pluck him out of a coffee shop and was like, you're coming to LA.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
It was like very just crazy, because I actually worked with the kid that knew him at the time, and he was just telling me, I'm like, no way, dude, this is awesome to see,
Yeah, it's got to be surreal.
Definitely. But he said, like, I heard a story where he was like standing in it was like an apartment or like a studio, whatever, kind of, and there was a kitchen, and he walked out, and it was like, he looked up, and Travis Scott was just standing there after he was out like playing the guitar, and he's just chilling in the kitchen with him. I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's just so cool when you look at artists and like become almost like in that same category with them.
Yeah. When the people you start becoming your peers, that's a pretty crazy thing.
Yeah, for sure. But man, that's with the guitar samples thing. That's just a little story I had to talk about, because that's so cool. Sick.
I'm trying to think. Minneapolis. There's a guy that I follow on Twitter. I think his name's Taylor J. It's from there. Have you ever heard of him?
I haven't.
He's pretty dope.
Check him out.
Yeah, I'll send you something on Instagram later. He's
for sure. Yeah, that's all what I'm about too, is just making the most out of connections. Like, I'm excited. That's what I get excited about with DJing, is like, I love talking to people like you or Gandhi or other artists. It's just so cool to see where, like, because a location isn't an issue anymore. There's social media, and when there's events, it doesn't matter. Like, traveling somewhere to make something crazy happen is so worth it, so.
I always look forward to making trips out of town. I've got certain artists that I've worked with enough over the past few years that, like, we try to get together on at least 2 or 3 times a year. We'll all meet up, whether it's in Florida or Los Angeles or wherever else, and anytime that we all get together and link up, it's the closest feeling that I get to being back on tour again. I guess would be the best way to describe it. It's just like being in a different area with like-minded people, getting to work on stuff that you're excited about is Just it's a special feeling, man. And that's
Definitely.
one of the things that I really, really enjoy about music
Yeah.
is if you work hard enough, you can make a good living off of it. You have to leverage connections and meet the right people. And of course, like, you know, do your due diligence and make sure you work your ass off.
Yeah.
But when you get to the point where things are paying off and people are acknowledging and supporting your work, it's a pretty fucking cool thing, man.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What else would you say to, so kind of the idea of this podcast, it's titled
Yeah.
Recognize and stuff. So it's basically about, you know, taking people like yourself. You definitely have like a exceptional freaking base started, you know, but
Yeah. Appreciate
um,
it.
it's about taking that and kind of bringing recognition to it and accepting the fact that they are like, a lot of the people that we talk to are like unrecognized per se, where
Yeah.
they're not like crazy up yet. But I think it's these people and this community that we've kind of created here where this is kind of the future of it, because these people are all like, you know, going the extra mile, including yourself, to
Yeah.
make it up there, you know. So what
So
would you say
a lot
to,
of work. A lot of
yeah,
work.
for sure. What would you say to anybody else like that?
Somebody who's like trying to do music.
Yeah, like new producers maybe, since that's your alley, or just other producers, engineers that kind of have a base like yourself but aren't
Don't
getting to
get
that.
caught. My advice would be don't get caught up in small shit.
Hmm.
Um, it was pretty stressful trying to like balance working with a lot of clients when I was first starting out, but not ultimately making the money that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know, it becomes a pride thing. I think, you know, when I started to kind of, let me think of how to phrase this. I was having to do a lot of free work when I didn't want to,
Yeah.
and I was I was beating myself up about it a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, man, I shouldn't have to be doing this. Like, I'm doing good work. Like, why am I still taking lumps like this? And
Hmm.
you know, it's just one of those things that you have to realize that there are so many people trying to do what you're trying to do. Is if it's production, if it's engineering, if it's rapping, anything like that, you have to realize that the software and the technology that's available to like consumers now, that like you don't
Hmm.
have to have a 20K studio budget to get a
Right.
record that sounds super dope.
Right.
And with that, you're going to come across, you know, people who may not want to pay you what it is that you think that you're worth because you haven't gotten a Grammy yet or whatever. But you
Right.
know, just I guess the grand point in all this would be just buckle through, man. Bite your teeth, get through it, take your lumps, and eventually it will pay off. You know,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to reach goals in my career. Like you said, you know, it's a climb. It's definitely one of those things that it takes a lot to get to that level where you're like, you can coast off your name,
Right.
not have to worry about it. You don't have to go and chase clients to get money coming in. You don't have to kind of cold sell yourself to people who don't know who you are. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, it's kind of different for everybody. Your network and your connections are all going to be individually different. You're going to know different people that are working in the industry. You're
Hmm.
going to have friends that are going to know people that are doing shit. And as long as you like make sure that you're keeping in touch with people, always do good business, you know, don't be shitty to anybody. Don't
Right.
be jaded to anybody, because when you're still trying to build yourself up, and I've been guilty of this. I got a big head at one point when I was starting to kind of come up around here, and you know, by the time that I started to reach out to like more national level clients that weren't just like local independent guys, I got little broed a little bit a couple times, and I was
Hmm.
like, fuck, like this isn't cool. Like, and it's just one of those things that you've got to take a step back and be like, okay, you know, there's a ton of other people out here trying to do this.
Right.
How can I approach this person the best way possible to try to build a genuine connection? You
Hmm.
know, artists ultimately, especially the independent guys, where everything that they do comes out of their dollar. They're paying for the video, they're paying for the studio time, they're hopefully paying for the beat and not just ripping it from YouTube. All of that comes down on them. They don't have a team. And when you're trying to do business with them, and, you know, you're going to have to make deals. You're going to have to maybe take a little bit less money at times than what you'd like to. But as long as you know that you made a positive connection out of it, and you made hopefully good enough quality work that you can turn that person into a lifelong client, whether it's them coming to you for every song that they need mixed, or just like they'll hit you up. Like I have clients that, like, I know that they go back and forth between other engineers, and that's totally fine.
Right.
That's totally fine. You can't get caught up in, oh, well, I did the last song for him, but this new one, they went to a new guy. What did I do wrong?
Right.
Maybe it's nothing like that. It's just, there's so many different independent freelancers and creators that, you know, all these people, they just want to see what works best for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a powerful statement. Just not getting caught up on that thing. And comparison is also just like your own worst enemy, you know?
Oh, like, comparison's a motherfucker, dude. Working in this type of industry, it'll cut you down real quick if you let it.
Yeah. And I think like seeing stream numbers and stuff when you pop on, you're like, I didn't do that one that got 100K, but I did this one that got 10K, you know? It's like, I don't think anybody should be able to, if you really genuinely put your best work into it and are proud of it, when you export it to them, I think that's where that kind of, that proudness should stay, because
for sure. And honestly, I used to get caught up in like how many streams and how well the artists I work with were performing, as far as like their monthlies on Spotify, their YouTube streams, their Apple Music, all that stuff. Like tracking their tangible career growth. And sometimes it's disappointing because you know that you worked on a really dope thing with this person, and they may not be getting the recognition that they should be for it. And that sucks sometimes, because I've seen a lot of people come into making music, have a perfectly good shot of being able to make something happen for themselves, but not seeing anything come of it, even within the first like year of them doing it. It'll burn somebody out. And it's tough for somebody like me to take hundreds, if not thousands of dollars from somebody who's wanting to work with me over the course of a year. And then they've got all this music and they've put it out, but they haven't maybe promoted it effectively. And it sucks to see that happen for people, because I know what that feels like.
Definitely.
You know, I used to be in a local band, and we would put stuff out, and if it wasn't well received, it sucks, because it's like an ego thing. You're like, what did I do wrong? But honestly, the name of the game today is just getting eyes on your stuff. And it's tough to get eyes on things. I mean, like, you have to kind of manipulate algorithms. You have to, you know, there's all these playlisting services, and there's so many illegitimate ones. And now like DSPs are kind of starting to crack down. Like Spotify is just like booting people off of like, they're kicking their songs off there. Like a guy that I work with, who's actually from around this area, he had a song, I think it got up to like 290,000 streams or something like that.
Yeah.
Super stoked about it. His monthlies were reflecting well. He had like over 100,000 monthlies because of the way the song performed, because it was playlisted. And when he went to go pay for the playlisting, he assumed that the service was up and that it was cool and that the playlists were legitimate. But then one day his song was completely off of Spotify, gone, couldn't be found.
Really?
And he hit me up. He was freaking out. He's like, dude, what the fuck happened? Like, and we ended up finding out that the playlisting service he used was bullshit.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's the DSPs or the distribution services that are cracking down on it more, but that's one of those things that you kind of got to get around as an artist nowadays when you're starting out. And it sucks, because how are you supposed to know what's fake and what's not?
Right.
Sometimes, you know, you see a really good looking website, an Instagram page for a service that's promising playlisting services, and they've got all these names on their stuff. They've got a bunch of likes on their pictures, a bunch of comments, and some follower count. And then they end up being like fake. And it's disheartening for people. But
Definitely.
yeah.
And there again, that personal connection comes up.
Oh yeah.
You could still pack out a venue of 500 people and you're set.
Yep.
But
Yep.
no, that's super good advice. And I think a lot of any artist definitely can take a ton of like they can cultivate a bunch of knowledge out of that you just said, because it's so true, and it's so you never want to get stuck relying on, your dollar being, your return on how many streams and stuff too. Like
Right.
there again, you just want to be proud and actually have your genuine passion and stuff behind your music. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are understanding that, and it's almost kind of not a good thing that they're cracking down, but I think it'll weed out some of the people that just do, oh, Dad, can I have, you know, $1,000
$500 for this playlisting service.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
oh, look at my streams, look at my fake Instagram followers, and it's all just BS anyway. So
There's definitely a lot of people who come into it because it's the cool thing to do, and it's accessible. Pretty much every town is going to have guys like me that can get your shit sounding right, and there's an appeal there for a lot of people who just want to get in, maybe try to just like boost their own image, maybe try to get like girls off of it or whatever the case may be.
Right.
When the focus is not on the music, it can be pretty immediately obvious, especially
Definitely.
when you go to work with the people in the studio. It can sometimes you can immediately tell, like, oh, okay, you're either brand new at this, or you just like don't care that much. Like you may need to go back and tweak some things, practice a little bit, and then come back. But you'll have that.
Yeah, I mean that's everything.
Everybody wants to flex, dude. That's the thing about rap, is everybody wants to flex. It's the cool thing to do.
Right. Well, yeah, check this man out. What's your Instagram again? It's patmixedit.
Yep, patmixedit on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at PatrickHall93. I'm a lot more active on there than I am Instagram. So
yeah, for sure, go check him out. That was a dope episode for sure. We'll get this out and it'll be sick.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on, bro. Man, you guys could not tell me that one wasn't inspirational. This man literally was around the nation multiple times touring. He definitely has some super sick knowledge to share, and I'm glad we got to talk today. Thank you one more time to patmixedit. Go check him out on his Instagram as well as his Twitter and showing some love on there. Thank you once again, Pat. And not to mention you guys, thank you all so much for listening to another episode. More episodes coming soon, and I cannot wait. Thank you. Peace.